My precious child, pause your racing thoughts for just a moment and listen with your spirit, not your ears. What you are hearing right now is not random, not accidental, and certainly not late. This is your last test. Archangel Michael stands beside you in this very moment, and he is delivering a message that heaven marked with urgency. God has sent a fortune check for you. Yes, you heard that correctly. Not tomorrow. Not someday. It has already been released. But hear this clearly. If hesitation rises, if doubt steals even 5 seconds of obedience, the check can vanish from your reach. This is why this message had to find you now. Beloved soul, Archangel Michael says this test is not about money alone. It is about readiness. It is about faith under pressure. It is about whether you will move when God speaks, or freeze when heaven calls your name. Many were meant to hear this message, but only a few were aligned enough to stay. If you are still listening, that already tells me something powerful about you. Listen carefully. The fortune check is a divine authorization. It carries provision, yes, but also restoration, relief, and vindication. God saw the nights you stayed awake calculating bills, the silent prayers you whispered when no one else knew your struggle. Archangel Michael says, I was sent because this child hath been tested enough. This is not a random blessing. It is a response. But here is the warning that cannot be softened. This test comes with urgency because hesitation reveals where trust truly lives. 5 seconds may seem small to the human mind, but in the spiritual realm, delay can close doors. Archangel Michael says many blessings were lost not because people were unworthy, but because they waited too long to believe. Right now, your spirit already feels the weight of this message. You may feel a tightness in your chest, a sudden stillness, or even a strange excitement mixed with fear. That is confirmation. Heaven is near. God is watching how you respond when the promise is placed in front of you without explanation. Archangel Michael says this: the enemy has tried to exhaust you so you would hesitate when God finally moves. Think about it. Every delay, every disappointment, every closed door before now was designed to make you second-guess miracles. But this moment is different. This is not a setup for pain. This is a setup for provision. Hear me clearly, chosen one. The check does not vanish because God changes his mind. It vanishes because doubt breaks alignment. Faith is the hand that receives. Hesitation loosens that grip. You may be wondering, why so dramatic? Why such urgency? Archangel Michael answers plainly, because this blessing is tied to timing. There is a window. There is a moment. And that moment is now. God is not testing your worth. He is testing your response. Some of you have been praying for a breakthrough that makes no logical sense. A sudden opportunity. Unexpected money. Debt erased in ways you cannot explain. Archangel Michael says, this is that prayer. But heaven needs to see if you still recognize God's voice when it doesn't come wrapped in comfort. Let me say something that may shake you, but it will free you. This is your last test of this kind. God is tired of watching you barely survive when you were called to overflow. But overflow requires trust at a higher level. And higher levels always come with higher stakes. Right now, do not overthink. Overthinking is where hesitation is born. This message is not asking you to figure everything out. It is asking you to open immediately. Open your heart. Open your faith. Open your expectation. When God says move, movement itself becomes obedience. Archangel Michael is standing guard over this release. That means no witchcraft, no jealousy, no past mistake can cancel it, unless you cancel it with doubt. This is why this message feels intense. Because destiny moments are never casual. Some of you are already saying, I feel like this is for me. That is not imagination. That is recognition. Your spirit remembers promises your mind forgot. God never forgot them. Stay with me. What Archangel Michael is about to reveal next explains why this test had to come suddenly, why the check is spiritual before it becomes physical, and how to secure it without fear. What comes next will answer questions you have carried for years. Beloved one, take a deeper breath now, because what Archangel Michael reveals in this moment goes far beyond what you expected when you first heard this message. The reason this test feels intense is because it is connected to a shift that has already begun behind the scenes. God does not test at random. Tests arrive when promotion is near. Archangel Michael says heaven already reviewed your endurance, your patience, and your obedience in hidden seasons. What is happening now is the final confirmation before release. Understand this clearly. The fortune check God has sent is not limited to paper or numbers. It is a divine transaction. It represents favor being transferred, access being granted, and resistance being removed. Many people misunderstand why blessings sometimes appear suddenly. Archangel Michael explains that sudden blessings are not sudden in preparation. They are sudden only in manifestation. God prepared this long before you became aware of it. This is why hesitation is dangerous here. Hesitation is not just delay. It is agreement with fear. Fear always asks questions faith does not need answered. Fear says, what if this fails? Faith says, if God spoke, I move. Archangel Michael says this test is exposing whether you still allow fear to negotiate with God's instructions. Some of you have been conditioned by past disappointments. You learned to pause, to analyze, to protect yourself emotionally. But hear this with clarity. Those survival habits cannot go with you into overflow. God is not offended by your questions, but timing does not wait for emotional processing. When heaven opens a window, it expects recognition, not negotiation. Archangel Michael says something powerful here. He says, this child has reached the point where blessings must chase them, not be chased by them. That is why this check comes to you, not you running after it. But you must be positioned to receive. Positioning is not physical, it is spiritual readiness. Notice how this message keeps you alert. That is intentional. Spiritual sleep causes missed opportunities. Archangel Michael was sent as a warrior not to scare you, but to keep you awake. He is guarding the moment so distraction does not steal it. Even now, there may be thoughts trying to pull you away, telling you this is too much, too dramatic, or too good to be true. That voice is not from God. God's voice brings urgency with peace. The enemy's voice brings urgency with anxiety. Feel the difference. If your spirit feels alert but steady, that is alignment. Archangel Michael says this test is calibrating you to move with God's pace, not your comfort level. Here is something few people realize. When God sends provision, He also sends instruction. The instruction here is simple. Do not hesitate. Hesitation is how blessings expire unused. Think of how many moments in your life you later realized were divine opportunities only after they passed. This time, God is warning you in advance so history does not repeat itself. Archangel Michael says the check carries a name on it, your name. It is authorized by heaven, stamped with grace, and backed by God's reputation. But it cannot be forced into your hands. Faith must reach for it. God must sign for it. Some of you are already seeing subtle confirmations. Repeating numbers, unexpected conversations, inner nudges, or sudden clarity about decisions you were confused about. These are not coincidences. They are signals that the spiritual atmosphere around you has shifted. When heaven moves, it leaves fingerprints everywhere. This is also why this message is finding you at this exact time. Not earlier, not later. Timing is mercy. If it came earlier, you may not have believed. If it came later, you may have missed the window. God's timing is always precise, even when it feels intense. Archangel Michael wants you to know something deeply personal now. He says, you are not behind. You are right on schedule. The delays you thought disqualified you were actually protecting you. You were being strengthened so you could carry what is coming without breaking under its weight. Now, hear this instruction with maturity and clarity. As this message resonates with you, do not keep it silent. When you engage, when you acknowledge, you anchor the word. That is why interaction matters. If this message is stirring something in your spirit, let that agreement be visible. Share it so others who are on the edge of their own breakthrough can hear what heaven is saying. Leave your presence here because faith that is expressed becomes faith that is established. Align yourself fully by staying connected, subscribing, and being part of this space where these messages flow. When you support what feeds your spirit, you stay positioned for what comes next. Archangel Michael says unity amplifies power. When many align under truth, resistance weakens. This is bigger than one moment. It is about staying in the flow of divine instruction. And before you let your attention drift, hold steady for what follows. What is about to be revealed next explains how to recognize the exact moment the check manifests, and how to protect it from being delayed after release. This next revelation connects everything you have felt so far. My beloved one, what Archangel Michael reveals now is the heart of this entire moment. Until now, you have felt the urgency, the warning, the nearness of heaven. But this is where understanding settles in your spirit. This test is not measuring how fast you move physically. It is measuring how quickly you agree with God internally. Heaven watches agreement before action. The moment you align in your heart, the mechanism of release activates. Archangel Michael says many people fail tests not because they disobey, but because they mentally argue with God while appearing still. They pause to replay old pain, past losses, and unanswered prayers. That inner hesitation is what causes the spiritual check to remain unclaimed. This is why God is speaking so directly to you now. He wants no confusion when the moment arrives. Hear this carefully. The fortune check carries restoration energy. That means it is not only adding something new, but also compensating for what was unfairly taken. Lost time, lost resources, lost confidence. Archangel Michael says heaven keeps records humans forget. Nothing you endured was wasted. This release is balanced, intentional, and exact. You may ask, why does it feel like everything depends on this one response? Because some seasons compress years into moments. This is one of those seasons. God sometimes waits until the very end, when human strength is exhausted, so faith can stand alone. That is where miracles respond fastest. Archangel Michael says this test exposes spiritual reflexes. When God speaks suddenly, do you lean toward trust or retreat into logic? Logic has its place, but miracles do not require permission from logic. They require recognition. Faith recognizes God's voice even when the instruction feels unconventional. Right now, heaven is not asking you to understand how the fortune arrives. That part is God's responsibility. Your responsibility is agreement without delay. This is why the message says, open immediately. Opening is consent. Opening is saying, I receive without fear. Some of you have been guarding your heart for so long that receiving feels risky. But hear this truth gently and firmly. You cannot heal fully while remaining closed. God does not bless to harm you. He blesses to heal you. Archangel Michael says this check is arriving with protection. It is shielded from sabotage, gossip, and interference. Notice how your spirit is becoming calmer even as the message remains intense. That calm is confirmation. Fear agitates. Truth stabilizes. If you feel steadied, that means your spirit recognizes this voice. Archangel Michael also reveals why this is called your last test. It is not the last challenge of your life, but the last test of survival faith. You are crossing into provision faith. Survival faith asks, will I make it? Provision faith declares, God sustains me. A mindset must shift before the resources do. Heaven will not keep testing you at the same level once you pass. That is why this moment matters. Once alignment locks in, repetition ends. Some listening now are sensing a deep emotional release. You may feel tears forming or a weight lifting. That is old resistance leaving. That is your spirit stepping forward. Let it happen. This is not weakness. This is readiness. Archangel Michael says, the hand that reaches without trembling is the hand that receives fully. Do not let old disappointments train you to expect loss. This moment is not connected to those outcomes. It is connected to God's promise. And now, before this part closes, heaven is asking for a visible response, not as pressure, but as alignment. This is where many feel the confirmation deepen. If this message is speaking directly to your spirit, mark this moment. Do not let it pass silently. Type I receive without hesitation in the comments if this message resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 7391 has just been released over your obedience. As this word goes forth, it does not travel alone. It moves like seed in fertile ground. God is reaching others who are standing at the same edge you are standing on now, confused, tired, but still hoping. When you choose to support this mission through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link placed in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing light into hidden lives. I hear the Lord saying, what you release will come back as harvest pressed down and overflowing. This is not a donation. This is a prophetic response. I feel led to say this directly. Your obedience in supporting this work opens doors that prayer alone could not unlock. As you give, may God mark your household for increase, your hands for favor, and your path for divine acceleration. Do it now, without delay, and let heaven respond to your faith. Remain still for what follows. What is coming next explains how this blessing begins to materialize in practical ways, and how to stay aligned as it unfolds. Chosen one. Now Archangel Michael draws your attention to what happens immediately after agreement is made. Many people believe the moment they say yes, everything changes outwardly at once. But heaven often works in layers. First alignment, and movement, then manifestation. This is why some blessings feel quiet at the beginning. Silence does not mean absence. Silence often means God is arranging details beyond human sight. Archangel Michael says the fortune check begins its journey the moment you stop resisting it mentally. Resistance is subtle. It hides behind phrases like I'll believe it when I see it or I don't want to get my hopes up. Those words sound reasonable, but spiritually they slow momentum. Faith does not need proof to start moving. Proof follows faith. Right now, God is adjusting circumstances around you. People, systems, conversations, and decisions are being repositioned. This is why you may feel a strange sense of anticipation without clear explanation. That feeling is alignment in progress. Your spirit senses movement even when your eyes cannot yet confirm it. Archangel Michael wants you to understand something crucial. The blessing coming to you does not arrive through struggle. It arrives through permission. You do not have to fight for it. You have already fought enough. This phase requires receptivity, not resistance. Many miss this shift and exhaust themselves trying to earn what God is freely releasing. You may notice that certain worries are losing their grip. Problems that once consumed your thoughts feel less heavy. That is not because they disappeared, but because provision is approaching. When supply gets closer, fear loosens its hold. Archangel Michael says the reason heaven emphasized urgency earlier is because the door is open now, not because it will slam shut cruelly. God is not trying to trap you. He is trying to synchronize you. Timing matters because blessings have appointments. Missed appointments require rescheduling, and rescheduling can mean delay. God wants to spare you unnecessary waiting. This is also the stage where distractions increase. Pay attention. When alignment strengthens, distractions attempt to pull focus away. Sudden busyness, emotional noise, or unnecessary conflict can appear. This is not coincidence. It is interruption. Archangel Michael stands guard so you remain aware and grounded. Stay present. Stay aware. Stay open. You may feel an urge to clean, organize, or prepare in small ways. That is instinctive readiness. When something new is coming, the Spirit prepares space. Do not ignore those nudges. They are part of the receiving process. Archangel Michael also speaks about discernment now. Not every voice that reacts to your blessing deserves access to your process. As this fortune begins to manifest, be mindful of who you share details with. Some people cannot celebrate what they do not understand. Protection sometimes looks like silence. This check is not just financial. It carries responsibility. God is trusting you with increase because He has seen your heart. He knows you will not misuse it, idolize it, or allow it to replace Him. This is why preparation happened internally before anything changed externally. You may experience moments of doubt trying to resurface. That is normal, but do not entertain them. Doubt knocking is not failure. Inviting doubt in is. When doubt appears, return to agreement. Remind yourself that God already spoke. Archangel Michael says something deeply reassuring here. He says, even if the child stumbles emotionally, I will steady them. His blessing is not fragile. It does not vanish because of momentary feelings. It responds only to sustained belief. You are allowed to feel. Just do not withdraw trust. This is the stage where patience becomes faith companion. Patience is not passive waiting. It is confident expectation. It says, I know it's coming, so I remain steady. That steadiness keeps the channel clear. Notice how this message continues to meet you where you are. That is intentional. God is walking with you through each phase so you do not feel alone in the process. You are not guessing. You are being guided. Archangel Michael says the next phase will involve recognition. You will begin to see signs that confirm movement. Not vague hope, but tangible indicators. This may come through people reaching out, opportunities presenting themselves, or clarity replacing confusion. When that happens, do not shrink back. Step forward calmly. The blessing does not require perfection. It requires presence. Stay present with God. Stay responsive. Stay open. What is coming next will help you recognize the exact signs that indicate the fortune is transitioning from spiritual authorization into physical reality. These signs will prevent doubt from re-entering and will anchor your confidence as things begin to shift. Remain attentive. You are closer than you think. Beloved child, Archangel Michael now turns your attention to recognition, because many blessings arrive quietly before they arrive loudly. This stage is where discernment protects your peace. God rarely announces the fullness of a miracle all at once. He allows it to unfold so faith can deepen without becoming dependent on spectacle. What you are entering now is the phase where signs begin to whisper before results begin to speak. Archangel Michael says the first sign is internal stability. Situations around you may not have changed yet, but something inside you has. You feel less frantic, less desperate, less afraid of the future. That calm is not denial. It is confirmation. When God secures provision, He often removes anxiety first. Anxiety cannot coexist with trust at high levels. The second sign is clarity replacing confusion. Decisions that once felt overwhelming begin to simplify. You suddenly know what to say yes to and what to walk away from. That clarity is not coincidence. It is guidance increasing because responsibility is increasing. God sharpens discernment before He increases resources. The third sign is unusual favor. People become more receptive to you. Conversations flow more smoothly. Resistance weakens in places where it once felt heavy. Archangel Michael says favor is the atmosphere that carries provision. When favor increases, doors no longer need force. However, hear this carefully. Recognition also includes restraint. Not every opportunity is part of the check's manifestation. Some things will look attractive but are distractions. Archangel Michael warns that impatience can cause people to grab substitutes while the real thing is approaching. Substitutes drain energy. The real blessing restores it. This is why pacing matters now. Move forward, but do not rush. Expect, but do not strain. Faith walks, it does not sprint in panic. If something requires you to compromise peace, integrity, or alignment, it is not the door God is opening. You may notice that old temptations resurface in subtle forms. These are not random. They are tests of maturity, not worthiness. God already settled your worth. Now He is refining your stewardship. The blessing coming to you needs a stable container. Archangel Michael says stewardship begins before possession. How you manage small increases now reflects how you will handle greater ones later. This includes time, energy, and attention. Pay attention to what drains you unnecessarily and begin to release it. Space is being created for what matters. You might also experience moments of impatience disguised as motivation. You feel the urge to make something happen. Be cautious here. There is a difference between inspired action and anxious action. Inspired action feels steady. Anxious action feels urgent and pressure. The check does not require panic to arrive. Archangel Michael reassures you here. He says, nothing meant for this child will miss them. That promise removes the need to chase. What is aligned will come into view without force. Your role is to remain responsive, not restless. This is also a time of emotional recalibration. As provision approaches, old identity patterns may surface. You may catch yourself thinking, people like me don't get this kind of blessing, or what if it doesn't last? These thoughts are remnants of past scarcity. Acknowledge them, but do not let them lead. New provision requires a new self-concept. God is not just changing what you have. He is changing how you see yourself. You are transitioning from surviving to stewarding. A shift can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable at first. but it is necessary. The blessing must land in a mindset that can sustain it. Archangel Michael says something deeply important here. He says the enemy often attacks identity before blessing, because identity determines longevity. If you still see yourself as unworthy, you may subconsciously sabotage what God gives. This message is correcting that before the blessing arrives fully. Pay attention to language now. What you say about yourself matters. What you say about your future matters. Words either reinforce faith or reopen doubt. Choose language that agrees with what God has declared, even if circumstances are still catching up. You may also notice an increase in gratitude for small things. That gratitude is not random. It is training your heart to recognize abundance. Gratitude expands capacity. Complaining contracts it. Heaven responds quickly to a thankful spirit. Archangel Michael also mentions rest. Do not underestimate rest during this phase. Fatigue clouds discernment. God does not rush exhausted vessels into increase. Rest is not laziness, it is wisdom. Allow your body and mind to recover from long seasons of pressure. As you move through this stage, remember this truth. Manifestation is a process, not a performance. There is no audience to impress. There is only alignment to maintain. You are doing well. Even being here, listening, absorbing, staying present, is evidence of growth. What comes next will deepen your understanding of why this blessing is protected, why certain people cannot access it, and how divine timing shields you from loss. This next revelation will also explain why some delays were actually acts of mercy. Stay grounded. Stay receptive. The unfolding continues. Chosen one. Archangel Michael now speaks about protection, because every blessing God releases is surrounded by divine intelligence. And nothing God sends is careless. Nothing arrives unguarded. What you are stepping into have been shielded intentionally, and the delays you once questioned were part of the shielding. Heaven was not withholding from you. It was preserving you. Archangel Michael says there were moments when you wanted answers quickly, relief immediately, and change without waiting. But had those prayers been answered at that time, the cost would have been greater than the blessing. God delayed not to deny you, but to remove future harm you could not yet see. Timing was not punishment. Timing was mercy. Now that the window has opened, protection remains active. This is why not everyone can access what God is doing in your life. Some relationships were limited. Some doors stayed closed. Some plans failed unexpectedly. None of that was random. God was narrowing the path so the blessing could reach you without interference. Archangel Michael wants you to understand this deeply. Divine protection often feels like restriction before it feels like freedom. At the time, you may have felt blocked, misunderstood, or isolated. But isolation sharpened discernment. Restriction refined focus. What felt like loss was actually preparation. This is also why comparison hath been dangerous for you. Looking at others made you question God's pace. But your path required different protection, different timing, and different development. What works for others may not sustain you. God knows exactly what you need and when you need it. As the fortune check draws closer to full manifestation, protection increases, not decreases. You may notice a growing disinterest in drama, chaos, or unnecessary conflict. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Peace becomes valuable when you realize how much it costs to lose it. Archangel Michael says something crucial here. He says that once God releases increase, He watches stewardship closely, not to judge, but to guard. How you respond emotionally matters. Pride repels protection. Humility preserves it. Gratitude stabilizes it. You are being invited into a quieter confidence, not the kind that announces itself, but the kind that rests securely. When God provides, there is no need to prove anything to anyone. Your life will speak on its own. At this stage, obedience becomes more subtle. God may prompt you to walk away from conversations, limit access, or say no without explanation. These instructions may seem small, but they are strategic. Protection often looks like obedience in details. You may also feel a stronger pull toward spiritual discipline, prayer, reflection, stillness. That is alignment deepening. When blessing approaches, intimacy increases. God draws you closer so you remain anchored in Him, not in outcomes. Archangel Michael reassures you here. He says, "This child will not lose what I bring." That promise is not based on perfection, but on posture. A heart that stays teachable stays protected. A spirit that remains grateful remains covered. Now hear this gently but clearly. As this message reaches you, engagement matters more than you realize. When you like, share, and comment, you are not just supporting content, you are amplifying alignment. You help this word reach others who are standing in similar moments of testing and breakthrough. When you subscribe and stay connected, you remain under the flow of guidance that helps you steward what God is doing. There is power in staying connected to what feeds your spirit. And before your attention drifts, hold steady for what is coming next. The next revelation explains how to handle the moment when the blessing becomes undeniable. When evidence replaces expectation, many mishandle that moment and create unnecessary struggle. What follows will help you move through it with wisdom and peace. Stay with this. You are entering a critical phase, and clarity is about to increase even more. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks about the moment many people misunderstand. The moment when the blessing becomes undeniable. This is the phase where expectation turns into evidence. It is powerful, but it is also delicate. What you do emotionally and spiritually in this stage determines whether the blessing multiplies or becomes complicated. God wants you prepared, not overwhelmed. When evidence appears, it rarely looks exactly like imagination. Many expect fireworks, instant transformation, or dramatic announcements. But heaven often introduces miracles through doors that look ordinary. An email, a phone call, a decision, an opportunity, a sudden opening that feels natural but carries supernatural weight. Archangel Michael says, "Do not underestimate subtlety." God hides greatness in simplicity. This is where humility becomes your anchor. When provision begins to show itself, there is a temptation to rush, to explain, to prove, or to celebrate prematurely. Celebration is not wrong, but grounding is essential. Stay rooted. Stay prayerful. Stay attentive. God is still guiding each step. You may notice emotions rising unexpectedly. Joy mixed with disbelief. Relief mixed with fear. Gratitude mixed with caution. These emotions are normal. You are crossing a threshold. Allow yourself to feel without letting emotion lead decisions. Feelings inform you. Wisdom directs you. Archangel Michael says this stage reveals inner narratives. Some will hear a quiet voice saying, "This won't last," or "Something will go wrong." That voice is not prophetic. It is residue from past instability. Do not partner with it. Replace it with truth. God does not tease His children with provision. He establishes them. Another important truth now. Not everyone needs to know what God is doing for you. Privacy is not secrecy. It is stewardship. The blessing does not need validation to be real. Oversharing too early can invite unnecessary opinions, envy, or confusion. Protect what God is growing. You may also experience a shift in how people relate to you. Some will become more interested, others more distant. Some will celebrate, others will question. None of these reactions should define your response. Your focus is alignment, not approval. Archangel Michael reminds you that increase brings visibility, even if you do not seek it. Visibility requires wisdom. Stay consistent. Stay kind. Stay grounded. Let your character remain unchanged even as circumstances improve. Stability glorifies God more than excitement ever could. This is also the stage where responsibility becomes real. Blessings are tools, not trophies. God gives so that good can flow through you, not just stop with you. You will begin to sense where generosity, wisdom, and discipline are required. Follow those nudges. They keep the channel open. Archangel Michael says something profound here. He says the blessing itself will test you less than your response to it. Many prayed for what you are receiving, but not all were prepared to manage it peacefully. God trusts you because He has watched your growth. You may feel an urge to move faster now, to make up for lost time. Be careful. Speed is not always progress. God restores years without rushing days. Pace yourself. Sustainable growth honors God more than quick expansion that leads to burnout. There will also be moments where gratitude deepens unexpectedly. You may find yourself thanking God for things you once complained about. Perspective shifts when provision arrives. That shift is healing. It means your heart is expanding, not hardening. Archangel Michael also warns gently here. You not romanticize struggle once you exit it. You survived because God carried you, not because suffering was noble. There is no guilt in receiving ease after endurance. Rest is part of restoration. At this stage, prayer changes tone. It becomes less desperate and more conversational. Less asking, more thanking. Less fear, more trust. That is maturity. God delights in this stage because relationship becomes central again, not just need. If at any moment you feel overwhelmed, return to stillness. Stillness recalibrates perspective. God is not asking you to manage everything at once. He is asking you to walk with Him step by step. Archangel Michael says the next unfolding will explain how to keep this blessing circulating rather than stagnating. Circulation is what turns provision into legacy. What comes next will help you understand divine flow, how God keeps giving without depletion. Remain attentive. You are not just receiving something. You are becoming someone new in the process. My precious child, Archangel Michael now speaks about divine flow, because what God gives you is not meant to stop with you. This is where many blessings either expand or quietly dry up. Flow is the secret heaven rarely explains openly, yet it governs increase at every level. God does not bless reservoirs, He blesses rivers. And right now, He is teaching you how to remain in motion without losing peace. Flow begins with understanding that provision is alive. It responds to posture. When you cling tightly in fear, flow constricts. When you release wisely in trust, flow accelerates. Archangel Michael says this does not mean reckless giving or careless decisions. It means remaining open-handed in spirit, even while being disciplined in action. You may notice now that ideas begin to come more easily. Solutions surface without strain. Creativity increases. That is flow activating. God is not only giving resources, He is giving insight. Insight protects resources and multiplies impact. This is why wisdom becomes more valuable than speed at this stage. Archangel Michael explains that divine flow requires balance. Gratitude keeps the heart soft. Discipline keeps the structure strong. Generosity keeps the channel clear. Humility keeps protection active. When these move together, increase becomes sustainable rather than seasonal. There is something important you must hear here. Flow does not mean everything feels easy. It means resistance no longer defines your progress. Challenges may still appear, but they do not drain you the way they used to. You recover faster. You think clearer. You trust deeper. That is evidence of maturity. Some of you are realizing that your old mindset could not have handled this level of blessing. If it had arrived earlier, it may have overwhelmed you. This realization is not regret, it is gratitude. God's timing spared you unnecessary damage. Archangel Michael says flow also changes your relationship with waiting. Waiting no longer feels like punishment. It feels purposeful. You trust that what is delayed is being refined, not denied. That trust keeps anxiety from clogging the channel. Now hear this clearly. The enemy does not always attack flow with loss. Sometimes he attacks it with distraction, overcommitment, emotional entanglements, unnecessary obligations. These slowly drain energy and attention. Pay attention to where your peace leaks. God will show you what to release. Flow also requires forgiveness. Holding resentment blocks circulation. You cannot carry offense and overflow at the same time. Archangel Michael says releasing bitterness now protects future abundance. Forgiveness is not approval of harm. It is refusal to let harm control your future. As this flow strengthens, you may feel a growing sense of purpose beyond personal relief. You begin to care about impact, about others, about legacy. A shift is holy. It means God is trusting you with influence, not just income. Archangel Michael reassures you here. He says, this child will not lack again in the way they once did. That does not mean challenges vanish forever. It means scarcity will no longer be your teacher. Wisdom will. You are entering a season where obedience feels lighter because fear no longer dominates decisions. You obey because you trust, not because you are desperate. The difference matters deeply in heaven. And now, before this part closes, heaven calls for a sacred marker. This is not obligation, it is alignment. If your spirit feels confirmed by this message, do not ignore that nudge. Type I am in divine flow in the comments if this word has aligned your heart. Blessing code 8842 is now activated over your life. And now, allow this moment to transition naturally into something holy and powerful. As this flow carries God's word forward, it reaches people who feel forgotten, exhausted, and close to giving up. When you release support through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link waiting in the description, you are not funding content. You are fueling a river of light. I hear the Lord saying, those who pour water will be refreshed themselves. This is a moment of divine exchange, not donation. I speak blessing over every giver now. May your seed return as protection, increase, and unexplainable favor. View this as an act of obedience, not hesitation, and watch how heaven responds quickly. Remain present. What follows will reveal how this flow protects your future and establishes stability that cannot be shaken. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks about stability, because flow without foundation can become chaos. God does not bless you only to excite you. He blesses you to establish you. What is forming now beneath the surface is stronger than what is appearing on the surface. Stability is being woven into your life quietly, intentionally, and permanently. This is the stage where God replaces emotional survival with spiritual security. You are no longer reacting to life. You are responding with wisdom. Situations that once triggered fear now invite discernment instead. That shift is not accidental. It is the result of alignment holding steady over time. Archangel Michael says stability begins when you stop bracing for loss. Many people live in constant preparation for disappointment because past pain trained them to expect collapse. But God is reconditioning you now. Expectation is being healed. You are learning how to trust continuity, not just breakthrough. As the blessing settles, routines become important. Consistency enters increase. God often introduces structure after expansion so that growth does not become overwhelming. You may feel drawn to healthier rhythms, clearer boundaries, and more intentional choices. These are not restrictions, they are supports. Archangel Michael wants you to know that peace is the greatest evidence of stability. Loud celebration fades quickly, but quiet confidence lasts. When you can wake up without dread, plan without panic, and rest without guilt, stability has taken root. This is also where long-term thinking emerges. You begin to consider the future without fear. Planning no longer feels pointless. Vision replaces mere survival. God is expanding your ability to see ahead without anxiety clouding your thoughts. You may notice that some desires change. Things you once wanted desperately no longer carry the same weight. That is not loss of ambition. It is refinement of purpose. God aligns desires with destiny, not impulse. Archangel Michael says this phase is protected by wisdom rather than force. You do not need to defend your blessing aggressively. You simply steward it consistently. Consistency builds credibility, both spiritually and practically. At times, you may feel bored compared to the intensity of earlier seasons. Do not misinterpret that. Boredom often signals peace unfamiliar to those who lived in constant crisis. Your nervous system is learning safety. Let it. God is not withdrawing excitement. He is replacing chaos with order. Order allows growth to last. You may also become more selective with your energy. You no longer feel obligated to explain yourself, rescue others, or overextend to prove value. That is maturity. You are learning that presence is more powerful than performance. Archangel Michael says this stability will confuse some people who only knew you in struggle. They may expect reactions you no longer give. That is okay. You are not changing to distance yourself. You are changing to protect what God has built. This is also the phase where gratitude becomes quieter but deeper. You no longer announce it. You live it. Appreciation settles into daily awareness rather than emotional spikes. The depth sustains joy. As stability grows, so does discernment about timing. You know when to act and when to wait. Waiting no longer feels like stagnation. It feels strategic. God trains patience not by delay alone, but by trust earned through consistency. Archangel Michael reassures you here. He says, this foundation will not crack under pressure. That promise matters because pressure will still come. Stability does not mean absence of challenge. It means resilience during challenge. You are being prepared for longevity. God is not interested in short-lived success. He is building something that remains. That is why this phase feels quieter, slower, and more grounded. Some of you are realizing that this is the first time in your life you feel truly safe, not because everything is perfect, but because you trust God's presence more than outcomes. That trust is priceless. This is also when generosity becomes intentional rather than emotional. You give because it aligns with purpose, not because you feel pressured. That discernment protects both giver and receiver. Archangel Michael says stability attracts the right opportunities naturally. You no longer chase doors. Doors recognize you. That recognition comes from character refined through seasons like the one you just passed. As you stand here now, notice how far you have come. Not just in circumstances, but in spirit. You are not the same person who entered this journey. You are steadier, clearer, stronger in quiet ways. What follows next will address the final internal adjustments God makes before full expansion becomes visible to others. This next unfolding explains why some blessings remain hidden a little longer even after stability is achieved, and how that hiddenness protects legacy. Stay attentive. You are approaching the final layers of this divine work. Beloved child, Archangel Michael now speaks about hiddenness, because many people misunderstand why God keeps certain blessings quiet even after stability is formed. Hiddenness is not delay, and it is not denial. Hiddenness is protection for what is still maturing. Just as roots grow in darkness before branches reach the sky, God allows certain parts of your breakthrough to remain unseen until they are strong enough to stand without damage. You may feel at this stage that everything inside you has changed, yet outward confirmation seems measured. That is intentional. God is allowing depth to finish its work before visibility increases. Archangel Michael says exposure too early can invite pressure that distracts from purpose. What God is building in you is meant to last, not impress briefly. Hidden seasons refine motivation. They reveal whether you are content with God's approval alone or still crave external validation. This is not condemnation. It is clarification. God is aligning your heart so that when visibility comes, it does not control you. Archangel Michael explains that hiddenness also filters access. Not everyone deserves front row seats to what God is doing. Some people only know how to consume, criticize, or compete. God limits exposure until your environment matches your elevation. During this phase, patience becomes quiet strength. You no longer need to announce progress to feel secure. You trust that God sees, and that is enough. His trust keeps pride from forming and keeps peace intact. You may notice that God continues to speak to you, even when circumstances seem calm. That ongoing communication is intimacy deepening. When noise fades, clarity sharpens. This is where direction becomes precise. Hiddenness also heals ambition. Not ambition to grow, but ambition to prove. You no longer feel the need to rush outcomes to validate your journey. You understand that timing is part of the miracle. Archangel Michael says something important here. He says many blessings collapse under the weight of premature attention. God shields you so that joy is not stolen by pressure, and purpose is not diluted by performance. As you walk through this quieter stretch, remain faithful in small obedience. Small obedience protects big promises. How you show up when no one is applauding matters more than how you perform when everyone is watching. This is also a season where discernment about voices becomes sharper. You recognize who brings peace and who brings confusion. You no longer argue with discernment. You honor it. That honor keeps alignment intact. At times, you may feel an urge to rush God, even subtly. That urge often comes from impatience with silence, not dissatisfaction with God. Sit with silence. God often speaks most clearly there. Archangel Michael reassures you here. He says nothing is missing. Nothing is late. The quiet you are experiencing is not emptiness. It is incubation. Something strong is forming. As this message continues to reach you, remember that staying connected matters. When you like, share, and comment, you help this word travel to others who are still confused in their hidden season. When you subscribe, and remain part of this space. You stay aligned with guidance meant to carry you through moments like this. Unity strengthens discernment. And hold on, because what comes next will shift how you see visibility entirely. The next revelation explains how God brings you forward at the right moment, without force, without striving, and without loss. You will understand why waiting was necessary and how elevation arrives naturally when preparation is complete. Stay present. This next unfolding ties everything together. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks about elevation, because what God brings forward is never forced. True elevation happens when preparation and timing meet quietly, without noise or strain. Many people chase visibility, but God escorts those who are ready. What is coming for you will not require you to push doors open. Doors will recognize you. Elevation from God feels different than promotion from people. It does not inflate the ego. It expands responsibility. It does not create anxiety. It produces authority with calm. Archangel Michael says when God elevates, He also stabilizes, so you do not lose yourself while gaining ground. You may notice that opportunities begin to come toward you naturally. Conversations shift. Invitations appear. People seek your input or presence without you advertising yourself. That is not coincidence. That is recognition formed through consistency and character. Elevation also changes how you see yourself. Not in pride, but in clarity. You stop underestimating what God has placed inside you. You no longer apologize for your growth. You become comfortable occupying the space God assigns without shrinking or overreaching. Archangel Michael wants you to understand that elevation does not erase humility. It redefines it. Humility is no longer thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself accurately, in alignment with God's perspective. That accuracy keeps you grounded even as influence increases. As elevation unfolds, your voice carries more weight. Words spoken casually before now carry impact. This is why discernment in speech becomes essential. Speak life. Speak wisdom. Speak intentionally. God trusts you with influence because He has refined your heart. You may also notice that some relationships naturally shift or fade. This is not rejection. It is redirection. Not everyone can walk with you into new levels without pulling you backward. God removes strain so you can move freely. Elevation requires emotional maturity. Reactions that once felt automatic now pause before emerging. You respond rather than react. That control is strength, not suppression. It allows you to lead situations instead of being led by them. Archangel Michael says elevation is not about being above others, but about being positioned to serve effectively. Influence given by God is always connected to purpose beyond self. That purpose will become clearer as you move forward. There may be moments where elevation feels lonely. Not because you are alone, but because fewer people can relate to your perspective. This is where intimacy with God deepens again. God becomes your constant reference point, not opinions. Elevation also exposes unresolved inner narratives. If any lingering insecurity remains, it may surface briefly. This is not failure. It is refinement finishing its work. Bring those thoughts to God, and let truth replace them fully. You are learning to carry weight without strain. That balance is rare and valuable. It comes only through seasons like the ones you passed through. Many want elevation, but few endure the preparation that makes it sustainable. Archangel Michael reassures you here. He says this child will not rise and fall repeatedly. That promise speaks of consistency. God is establishing you, not experimenting with you. As elevation becomes more visible, temptation to self-protect excessively may arise. Remember this. You do not need to harden to stay strong. Openness guided by wisdom is still strength. God does not ask you to build walls where discernment is enough. Your pace remains important. Do not compare your elevation to others. Comparison distorts gratitude. Your journey hath been uniquely shaped for your calling. Trust that uniqueness. Elevation also refines prayer. You pray less for rescue and more for guidance. Less for relief and more for wisdom. A shift shows growth. God responds differently to mature prayers because He entrusts more to mature hearts. Notice how fear has lost its dominance. It may still whisper occasionally, but it no longer commands. The change alone is evidence of transformation. Archangel Michael says you are nearing completion of this cycle. What began with urgency now settles into authority. What began with testing now results in trust. God does not repeat lessons once they are learned. As you stand here, recognize this truth. Elevation does not separate you from God. It brings you closer to His heart. Responsibility increases, but so does intimacy. That intimacy keeps everything aligned. What remains now is sealing. The final unfolding will bring closure, blessing, and confirmation of everything that has been spoken. This is where the journey completes its circle and purpose becomes undeniable. Stay present. The final message carries weight meant to anchor everything God has done. My beloved child, Archangel Michael now speaks the sealing word over everything that has unfolded. What began as urgency now becomes certainty. What began as a test now stands as testimony. This is the completion of a cycle that heaven itself authored. God does not start stories He does not finish, and He does not bring His children this far to abandon them at the edge. What is being sealed now is not temporary relief but established favor. Archangel Michael says this final stage is about ownership. Not ownership in pride, but ownership in faith. You are no longer asking, will this happen? You are learning to stand in, God has done this. That shift is subtle, but it is powerful. Faith matures when it stops pleading and starts stewarding. This is where peace becomes permanent. Not because life is perfect, but because fear no longer governs decisions. You trust God's character more than circumstances. You trust His timing more than pressure. You trust His covering more than your own control. That trust is the seal. Archangel Michael declares that what God has released toward you will not reverse. This is not a momentary high. This is a new baseline. The cycles of almost, not yet, and maybe next time have ended. You have crossed a threshold that does not require you to return to old lessons. You may still face challenges, but they will meet a different version of you. A steadier you, a wiser you, a you that no longer collapses under uncertainty. This is evidence that the test worked in your favor. There is also a deep rest settling over your spirit now. Not sleep, but restfulness. A knowing that you are held. That rest is holy. It is God's gift after long endurance. Receive it without guilt. Archangel Michael says something final and powerful here. He says, the check was never only about provision. It was about permission. Permission to live without constant fear. Permission to plan without anxiety. Permission to believe that good can stay. That permission has now been granted. As the season closes, gratitude becomes your anchor. Gratitude for what came, for what stayed away, and for what arrived exactly on time. Gratitude keeps the seal intact. You may notice that your prayers now carry authority. Not volume, but weight. When you speak from alignment, not desperation. Heaven listens differently to aligned voices. This is also where your story becomes medicine for others. not because you preach, but because your life speaks. Quiet confidence inspires more than loud testimony ever could. God will use your stability to reassure others who are still waiting. Archangel Michael confirms that no mistake you made disqualified you. No delay you experienced canceled the promise. Grace filled the gap. Mercy bridged the timing. This completion honors both God's faithfulness and your endurance. Now, before this message closes fully, heaven asks for one final act of alignment. This is not pressure. This is sealing through agreement. Type IT is sealed in the comments if you receive this word with faith. Blessing code 9067 is now released and activated over your life. And now, let this final transition flow naturally from the sealing you just received. As this journey completes, the Lord places a weight on my spirit to speak directly to those who feel called to help carry this word forward. This message reached you because someone sowed before you. And now God is inviting you into that same river. I hear him say, "Those who strengthen my voice will never lack my provision." When you release support through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link waiting in the description, you are not funding a video, you are funding encounters. This is a prophetic act, not a casual choice. I bless every giver now. May your seed rise as protection over your home, clarity over your decisions, and overflow in places you least expect. Do it now, with joy and obedience, and let heaven mark your generosity as covenant. Remain in peace. What God has begun, he has finished. What he has sealed, no one can undo.